Hi there, welcome back. This is the beginning of Unit 5. So that does mean that you're almost completely finished with the course. And we have a number of things that are going to come together in this last unit that merge what you learned in the first, second, third, fourth units and make it so that you're having a much more interesting experience thinking about humans today, biologically, phenotypically, and in terms of looking to the future with the question of, are humans still evolving? And of course we are, and we'll get to that as you get through the lesson. At the very, very last thing you'll be working at is taking a look at forensic anthropology, which is how anthropologists specifically investigate issues with human corpses. Anthropologists are not coroners, so we don't look at the recently deceased. We do look at bodies that have been decomposing for a particular period of time or have some other issues. And again, that'll be another lesson as we go. So what you need to begin this unit is to firstly remember to check on the specific dates for the final exam. The date for the final is the very last day that the class is legally available. So nothing can be turned in after that time. Nothing can be reset. There isn't anything other for you to do except for be happy that you're finished. So if your section says that you were finishing, for instance, this semester on May 18th, then that is the last day that anything will be available to you. If your section says you're finishing on the 20th, then that will be your last day. So we'll be sticking to that, of course. Now, as you begin Unit 5, firstly, be sure that you find a handout for you, and it is embedded in Canvas, but it's probably for many of you, if you have the ability to print it off, best to print it off and make a checklist out of it. And it's just entitled Unit 5 using the Stanford Text current edition, in other words, the edition that's embedded in Canvas. And it tells you in a bulleted section what the major topics are. It outlines the final exam supplementary materials like viewing or online reading or PowerPoints that are going to be posted there. And then the last section will just say, what is your specific reading assignments? So you are going to be reading portions of chapter 13, 14, 15, and chapter 6. We did skip that earlier in the semester, and now it's time to go back and take a look at that. That chapter looks at humans today. And so since we finished your ancestors, just as we finished up. So it's time to take a look at that. Now, all of these topics do go together. They aren't going to seem that way when you look at the titles, but as you work through the unit, they are going to mesh and mingle. And you're going to start with origins and dispersal of anatomically modern Homo sapiens, or AMHS. That will be the first lesson for you, and that will begin with materials that are embedded and also with chapter 13. I will be putting together a couple of video lessons for you to work through a couple of the sections of origins and dispersal of anatomically modern Homo sapiens, and they will be relinking you back to what you've already learned about anatomy. And at this point in the class, we're going to really closely look at cranial anatomy in humans, modern humans, you, right now, and there'll be a little bit more vocabulary. But again, you've already done the names of the bones in a couple of different units, head, as well as rest of the body. And we're only going to add a little bit more and some terminology for thinking about portions or sections. So should flow very nicely for you as you've been keeping up with the course. We're also going to take a look at what our lines of evidence are. And again, you are getting a life science requirement for the course, so knowing the lines of evidence is going to be really, really important for that general science perspective. What is the empirical evidence, or what types of scientific specialists are we going to be looking to in order to be able to put together our current bit of data on how long ago did our species appear physiologically, where was that, how they've moved across the landscape, and whether we're looking at that genetically, whether we're looking at that in terms of our tools and other things that we've made, whether we're looking for bodies and teeth, language data, and so forth. So those will be the two sections for that. We will look specifically for starting in Africa. Yes, we're an African species. I know we've said that so many times in the course. And how exactly us moves away from Africa to the other continents, including into Oceania and the Pacific, which isn't in the textbook in too much detail, so I'll be adding that for you. And then also into the Americans, that'll be a special separate bit of section because there's a little bit more data than the textbook actually includes on that. As we finish up with that, you'll be moving towards chapter 6. So origins and dispersal, and then moving on to taking a look at us as a modern species. Now this unit, as you've probably noticed as you're looking through what the topics are, or perhaps what the content on the final exam is going to be, does include a look at the question of epidemiology, infectious disease, and what natural factors are shaping our species. And so with all of the incredible news and current data about emerging diseases, how diseases move, how we pass them along, and tremendous use in not only news, but other types of media, of specific vocabulary words like epidemic, or like infectious disease, or even the term epidemiology. It's a good time always for us in our modern culture to learn exactly what those terms mean, like pathogen or vector. Or really even what the original source of the term virus is. And therefore, you'll be able to read and understand when people are talking to you, when you're doing a little bit more research on something, or when something else is popping up in the news, whether it's SARS, Ebola, COVID, those sorts of things. You're going to be able to understand it better. And you'll also be able to, which is the great thing about education, right? To be able to tell when somebody's talking to you and they don't fully understand what it is they're telling you. That happens a lot with interviews, politics, and people who have personal reasons why they would like to be commenting on things that are health related. So that'll be very, very current. Just the same way that learning bone names brought you into more current analysis of things, and the bipedal adaptation, why, for instance, our knees wear out, our lower back wears out, our feet hurt, and so forth. So the course is adding to your ability to function really nicely in the modern world. We will also take a look in part of this, and it will be your chapter 14 reading on the last bit of data on evolution of the brain and evolution of our modern speaking and speech centers there. If you've already had some courses where you looked at the major portions of the brain, for instance, like Intro to Psych, then it'll be review. If you haven't, it's time for you to take a look and know what the difference between your brainstem, cerebrum, cerebellum, and some of those basics of geography. Now, in that particular chapter, you're going to do the same thing with your notes as you were doing for hominins, and that is sketching out and making a little bit of with arrows and terms where these are located, and really just what is the vocabulary for understanding these areas, like Broca's area or Wernicke's area, or where your brainstem is. All right, and then as we move forward through this, also we'll finally hit topics like skin pigmentation and body build and other things that are related to our dispersal patterns from originally the equator with high UV index and into areas that are shadier, cooler, less protein available or more protein available in the natural landscape and diet, and so on and so forth. So ready to go, get started. Start out first by using the one-page handout on Unit 5 And that is your roadmap to what is going to be on the final exam. Okay, good to work with you. Good for us to be zooming in towards the end. Take care.